We are not going to give up. We're going to win. We've been winning. We're going to continue to win. We're gonna stick together. We're gonna unite. As it is right now, we've been united all through indigenous countries, and we're gonna fight back. We're gonna continue until we are a free nation. I gave 50 years for that. You know, and I'm gonna give the rest of my life. So they haven't broken. They have not broke me. I have not broken.
So now we can go forward to secure the building permit, begin the renovation, provide needed employment in our community. Our local contractors have been on standby and are ready to go. We are grateful for all of our supporters from all around the world. Will continue to fight for all of Northside businesses to get fairly treated by the city. We look forward to welcoming everybody to the New Uhuru Bakery Cafe. And you can support or volunteer with the Uhuru Bakery and Cafe contact us as stl@uhurufoods.org. And I just want to say that we are the vanguard leading the economic process. Our economic work is revolutionary work. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru. Hands off Africa. And freedom to all colonized peoples of the world. I want to really salute and appreciate everybody for being on today's webinar. My name is Mwezi Odom, and I have the great honor of serving as the chairperson for the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fightback Coalition and the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Counteroffensive, which was in response to the vicious and violent raids on the African People's Socialist Party, which was the front of the African liberation struggle in our time. This happened almost 3 years ago, July 29, 2022. And you are all a part of that fight back. We want to appreciate everybody for being on today's program. Today is Saturday, April 5th, 2025. So much has happened over these past 3 years, and it has been such an honor for myself and for many of us, comrades to be in struggle with you all. Many of you showed up in droves since day one for the Uhuru 3, in defense of the Uhuru 3. And we're going to talk more about why today's webinar is important, why it is important that we are all still in the struggle, why it is important that we say it is not over. Before we get into today's program, I just want to read a brief statement, and then we're going to go on into our program. We have some great guests, and I'm really excited about that as well. So, but before we do, I just want to remind everybody, and we want to remind everybody that on April 4th, so just on yesterday, was the 57th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And, we can date back to one of his presentations, his last presentation, actually, on April 3rd, 1968, where Dr. King stated, quote, "Trouble is in the land, confusion in the land. Something is happening in our world. The masses of our people are rising up. And wherever they are assembled today, wherever they are, in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Mississippi, Tennessee, the cry is always the same. We want to be free." And, in that last presentation of Dr. King, he stated that, he had been to the mountaintop and he had seen the promised land, and, even went on to say that I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And, that's a really powerful statement, because what we even say in the movement, is not yet Uhuru. We are not yet free, and it is not over. And we know that the very next day, after he made these very profound statements, Dr. King was assassinated as a part of the counterinsurgency waged on by the government against the African liberation movement. And that, again, was April 4th, 1968. 57 years ago, was the murder of MLK as a part of this wave of assassinations of our African revolutionary leaders, like Malcolm X in 1965, Fred Hampton in 1969, and so many more. And, we know King was murdered because he was fighting for the liberation of African people and all oppressed peoples of the world. And the very same is the struggle of our chairman, Omali Yeshitela, and the Uhuru movement, which is waging that same struggle today. And just another quick note, in his powerful Beyond Vietnam speech at the Riverside Church in 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. famously stated, quote, "I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. And as he stated, that is my own government," end quote. So as we know today, African, indigenous, and colonized peoples are struggling for liberation, and the people of Palestine, as we know, continue to courageously rise up for their own liberation from the US-backed Israeli colonial domination and violence. And we're going to talk more about that as well in today's program. And, Dr. King's words, again, they could not be more true or more relevant today. And as we know, Chairman Omali Yeshitela has taken it upon himself to resolve, all the contradictions of the Black Revolution and to continue and complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s, which is why the African People's Socialist Party was created, which is why the Uhuru movement was created as a mass organization to lead this fight back, this anti-colonial free speech fight back, and to end colonialism and oppression once and for all in our lifetime. And so with that, I want to also bring up my co-MC. We're going to go through a quick PowerPoint, but I just want to say that, again, comrades, this struggle is not over. And I have the great honor of joining with me my co-MC, Comrade Penny Hess, who is one of the Uhuru Three and serves as the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee. Strategy taking this, struggle for, reparations, Black power in whiteface into the white community. So Uhuru, comrade, great to see you.
Uhuru, Chair Mwezi. It is so great to be here today. And I want to salute everybody who's on. I think this is going to be a powerful webinar and update of what is going on. And of course, I want to salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade, welcome. And thank you so much. And we're going to go through these slides here and just, get us to a point where we can open it up for everybody as well, too. So thank you, comrade. So again, before we move any further, share, send this message to your friends, families, your coworkers, your members in your organization to join this webinar, handsoffuhuru.org/register. This is the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. We'll talk more about who the coalition is, but it's important to know that this coalition came together to build the anti-colonial free speech movement. And as we can see, the attacks of free speech are under attack. And this coalition was, designed to bring together, a non-sectarian anti-colonial free speech, mobilization to make the demand, again, to drop the charges against the Uhuru Three and to demand the right to freedom of speech. I too want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the African nation, driving forth the visionary and the architect of this, struggle for us to have and bring freedom into our lifetimes. And I really want to salute Chairman and our Deputy Chair, Onizine Yeshitela, who was the architect, where you can actually see the Chairman's vision and the work of the over 50 economic development projects of the African People's Socialist Party on the ground. You go to St. Louis, you go to other, places around, around the United States, you can see the work, the economic work, which is why we came under attack. And I want to salute Deputy Chair for her relentless leadership as well. Again, we say that today it is not over because there are some updates that we want people to know about what is happening with the Uhuru Three. This fight back is not over. We are going to appeal, and we're going to talk more about that. And part of this whole struggle that we have been a part with the Uhuru Three, we have seen, many victories along the way. We want to salute the powerful victory. Comrade, Leonard Peltier is home, an indigenous, freedom fighter who, was locked up for nearly 50 years, is now home. And we want to really support and salute the comrades from the committee to bring Leonard home, who are a part of this, fight back as well, his attorneys, as well as all the organizers as well. I also want to salute the Uhuru Three. You're going to be hearing from all three of them today, Comrades Penny Hess, Jesse Neville, and Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is also our keynote speaker on today and our powerful lineup. We wanted to salute Comrade Marsha Adebayo, who unfortunately will not be able to join us. She might be able to come a little bit later, but at this point, we will definitely have Marsha coming back again soon. Comrade Pam Africa of the Friends and Families of Mumia Abu Jamal, attorney Angela Rainey, who was one of the amazing attorneys of the Uhuru 3, as well as Mia Perry, who is a volunteer with our Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Committee, and Josh Shirley, who is with Veterans for Peace. And I guess I can say more about Marsha Adebayo, but I just want to say, if you are not familiar or know about the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition, we must, we're going to be talking about this a lot soon, and it's unfortunate we won't have the comrade on to give us the full detail on today, but this is a really important struggle that is happening with the cemetery that's, under attack in terms of, there's a lot more that we should say and we will say about the fight back that Marsha is leading. Uhuru. So I also want to say that our campaign, we salute and we stand with Comrade Mumia Abu Jamal, and we demand his release. And we salute the courageous stances of Comrades Pam Africa, Ramona Africa, who are pictured here, and the fight to bring Comrade Mumia home as well. We really want to salute this comrade, as well as, we continue to say free Comrade Imam Jamil Al-Hamin, also known as H. Rat Brown, who at 81 years old, is a civil rights leader, and who was also, wrongfully convicted or wrongfully imprisoned for over 24 some years now, and is facing some very serious medical, life-threatening medical conditions in these colonial prisons. And we want that comrade out and back with his community. So just a couple more updates here, and I'm going to turn it over to my comrade, Chairwoman Penny. So, the FBI raids that happened on July 29, 2022 was, as we know, a continuation to crush the Black liberation, struggle for self-determination. And when the FBI attacked the Uhuru movement, comrades, we fought back, and we built a movement that called into question this attack on all freedom-loving people. We saw supporters come out from all over. We want to salute some of the, early supporters on the ground here. On the ground pictured are the comrades of D12 and the other supporters in Brooklyn, New York, and many others from around the world who, took to the streets, raised the struggle of, freedom of speech, built an anti-colonial free speech movement. And we just want to say a big uhuru and thank you to everybody who has supported us worldwide, from those who, donated, fundraised, signed a petition, hosted an event, put up posters, passed out flyers, marched with us, and more. Comrades, we salute you, and we salute all of the fallen comrades that we also, lost during this period. There are many that we can name. We want to salute Comrade Viola Plummer of D12, Comrade Ralph Pointer, a longtime fighter in the struggle for our political prisoners, and so many more. In this fight back, go ahead. Yeah.
Uhuru, well, I just, really appreciate that. And also we want to go to salute our brilliant attorneys. And as we're going to talk about today, the struggle of the Uhuru 3 is not over. We have another big plans for submitting an appeal of our case, which I think will be a very, very important appeal. We're going to have just a very thorough report on that. And, we do salute the brilliant work of our Legal Defense Committee, Attorney Leonard Goodman, Angela Rainey, who is with us today, Addie Griffin, Mutaki Akbar, Tom Inskeep, and we have other legal help, including from National Lawyers Guild and others who have just played really important roles in this case that we can't thank you enough. So Uhuru to that. And as we say, next slide, that the US government lied and lost. The Uhuru movement told the truth and won. And that was a powerful victory that we only would have were able to win thanks to all of the profound support from hundreds of organizations and thousands of individuals. We want to thank all of the people who the supporters and others who have sent thank you letters, character letters to the judge. We got an outpouring of over 1,600 character letters. And believe me, when people go to court with character letters, they usually maybe have 2 or 3, you know, from relatives, cousins. This was very, very important letters sent to the judge. And we want to thank people profoundly for taking the time to write these letters, which truly make a difference.
Uhuru. Yes, and that's, go ahead. Oh, let me
Well,
take this
no.
one. And I'm going to kick it back to you in just a moment too, because I
Yes,
think
go
what
ahead.
Chairwoman Penny, I want to just appreciate, you know, why we say it's not over, right? Because we will appeal. And part of why we're here today is to continue to, oh, sorry, there we go, is to continue to allow everybody to be a part of even overturning these, you know, these bogus laws, right? Which is the reason why the Uhuru 3 were, you know, even having to go through all this in the first place. And I'm really excited for, our appeals team. We're going to make an appeal for why we need to raise the money to appeal. And so everybody can really understand, the importance of this, but more so the political importance of this period, because we have experienced ongoing attacks throughout this whole struggle since even before the attacks on July 29th, on July 2nd, the red, black, and green flag was burned outside of the Uhuru House on the ground in St. Pete, almost as a test run. And this is just an ongoing struggle. And so we want everybody to join the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. If you are on this call right now and you are not yet a member of this organization, we invite you to go to handsoffuhuru.org/coalition, read our demands, and join the the growing list of hundreds of organizations and individuals who have endorsed and who joined this same fight back. Because part of what we are doing is calling into question all of the struggles of the people. So the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, as an anti-colonial, body, demands, for Africans and oppressed and colonized nice people. If you look at our statement of unity when you go to our website, which was the founding document of this coalition, it highlights, just a quote, today we see a crisis of imperialism brought on by the resistance of colonized peoples in a unipolar world and U.S. hegemony built on slavery and genocide and colonial war and plunder. And we understand that a weakened imperialism is a dangerous beast and that we can fight back if we win, and that we must build a new unity advancing the interests of all colonized peoples, all oppressed peoples, and all freedom-loving people. And we understand that the main contradiction is colonialism. And we just want to bring to light 2 of our demands that you can find on the website. But demand number 4, about the right to free speech, the freedom of assembly to struggle and build our movements for justice, peace, liberation, and unity for all people. We demand the right to speak out and associate with our allies without fear of reprisals from the U.S. government and the colonial state. And demand number 7, we demand an end to U.S. government attacks on the Mexican, Navajo, and other indigenous peoples, occupied Palestine people, the Filipino people, African people in Haiti. At the time, we were, calling for, the support for Comrade Alex Saab and still for the people of, Venezuela, and an end to the blockade on Cuba, demand to lift the travel bans and the designation of Cuba as the state sponsor of terrorism. So this is your fight back. This is where you want to be in bringing in all of your, various, struggles. Now I'm going to kick it back to Chairwoman Penny to talk to us about another fight back, that you are a part of when you're with this as well, the fight back on the ground in St. Louis, where she's located. Uhuru.
Yes, Uhuru, and I just want to say that this is a time of people's victories, and we're seeing it on so many fronts. And the Uhuru movement here in St. Louis had a powerful victory in the struggle for the Uhuru Bakery Cafe that is led by Ona Zinea Shatella, the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party and the leader of the political economic front of the African People's Socialist Party. There was a huge struggle. Even though North St. Louis is designated and often called a food desert or a food apartheid, the city of St. Louis was was attempting to keep the Uhuru movement from opening this beautiful cafe that is very near the Uhuru House, the beautiful flag, the West Florissant Quarter, we call it, but went down to City Hall, mobilized people, supporters, the community with hundreds of letters of support and other kinds of manifestations of that, went down to City Hall, won the appeal.
Yes.
Very, very exciting. And the Uhuru Bakery Cafe on West Florissant, right across from the incredible basketball court and near the beautiful community garden that exists there also as part of the Black Power Blueprint programs. It did get its appeal. It's working on opening the building right now. So within the next few months, Uhuru Bakery Cafe will be open. So
Yeah.
Uhuru, real victory of the people.
Uhuru. Next slide for Penny. There we go.
And yes, so just to say a little bit under this period that we're in, that it was under Biden and the Democratic Party that these attacks came down against Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And it just shows what the chairman always puts out, that both of the political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, are two fronts of this same parasitic, genocidal state and government that we experience that's called the United States. Next slide. And under the current administration now, under this administration, we've already seen more than 300 permanent residents, people with green cards who have been deported. Sorry, that says departed. It's supposed to be deported. And many of them had green cards. We've seen huge, just ICE, the ICE for, coming, they're like, SWAT teams, and they're just coming and seizing people off the street, even if they are, supposedly fully permanent residents of the United States. But we've also seen a powerful outpouring of support. We see some pictures here of massive demonstrations led by the Mexican community of Los Angeles and Southern California and other places around, including the students at Columbia University and other universities who are fighting back against this repression, this colonial repression that we are currently seeing. Next slide. And we want to salute and say hands off Mahmoud Khalil, who has been struggling and who was attacked in just this way at Columbia University. And I know that, in fact, I believe that some of the people who aren't able to be on here today, including Marcia, are at protests around this particular case that's going on. So we want to salute him and all of the students and comrades who are defying the this vicious colonial government and fighting for continuing the struggle for anti-colonial free speech in a very powerful way. And as we're seeing, even to today, this very day, the Palestinian people are posting that they may not be able to survive the US-backed bombing of Israel of Gaza by the US-backed illegitimate Israeli government. It continues, and it is intensifying in this period once again, as the Palestinian people continue to fight for their liberation, for the return of their stolen land. And we say victory to Palestine.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. And, and this is why the question of colonialism is so central to everything that we're seeing, taking place in terms of, what is to be done and what is the, way forward. We're not here trying to, address all of the symptoms, because we know that all the symptoms can be, eradicated if we can get it at its core. And this is the colonial mode of production at work. what we've just seen. And this is how we fight back. So I really want to appreciate you, comrade. And we want to salute everybody who has gotten us to this point where we are, just $39,500 away from raising what we need for our appeal. And this is really important, this webinar and those that will come, later on, but also the work that you do on the ground and what we're calling on you to do is going to be really important in helping us raise that, because 39,500 is really just 100 people, giving 39, wait, what is it? Wait, 395 people giving $100. There we go. Or 39 people, doing $1,000, or 158 people doing $250. There we go. There's my notes. So comrades, we can do this. And, we really want to, close out this entire phase by the end of July of this year, coming up to the anniversary of the raids. And so we'll be calling on comrades to donate. And we want to thank those who have already gone to handsoffuhuru.org/donate to help us reach our goal. And so if we can, put a dent in that, I say let's try to get 2,000 or whatever we can on today to make a dent in that 39,500. So, comrades, without further ado, we are going to move on with today's amazing program. So I want to thank our Zoom tech for helping us through those slides. And Chairwoman Penny, we're going to take a moment now. I'm going to turn it over to you as we move on to our legal discussion to give everybody an update about where we are with the conspiracy charges and everything. Uhuru.
Uhuru, well, I see we have Attorney Leonard Goodman who has joined us as well as Attorney Angela Rainey. And let me just look at the script here. We have, and we're also I'm going to turn this over to Comrade Jesse, who's going to go into this discussion. So yeah, I want to bring up the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, one of the very important members of the Uhuru 3, who has, really helped to sort of translate all the legal work and to make us be able to understand it, and has played a role himself in doing some of the legal research. Comrade Jesse Neville.
Uhuru, Jesse.
Uhuru, Chair Mwezi and Chairwoman Penny, and salute to Attorney Leonard Goodman, who I see on there, as well as our incredible Attorney Angela Rainey. And I'm very honored to be on this webinar, as always, and just want to unite with the overview that's been given and the title of today's webinar. It's not over. The struggle is ongoing, and we had an amazing victory thanks to the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chair Mwezi, the African People's Socialist Party, the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition, our amazing attorneys, and all of you, the people who have supported this struggle from day one. We had two amazing victories. First, with defeating the main charge that the U.S. government brought against Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and myself, the Uhuru 3, this ludicrous charge, which was, the chairman says, was an attack on Africa and African people, by attempting to discredit the voice of African people, by attributing the righteous resistance and struggle of African people in this country, which has been continuous from the very inception of this country, to some kind of Russian foreign malign influence. That was absolutely defeated. And then the US government's attempt, based on their bogus conspiracy conviction, to lock up Chairman Omali Yeshitela in prison, was also defeated on December 16th, on the glorious day that we remember with the chant, "Not one day, not one dime." But there are still more victories to win, and these victories are extremely important. And one of the main victories involves the appeal that will be going forward at this very time to overturn the conspiracy conviction, the bogus conspiracy conviction. As people probably remember, the outcome of that trial, as far as the verdict was concerned, was that the chairman and the Uhuru 3 were acquitted of the ridiculous charge of being so-called a Russian agent, but we were convicted of conspiracy to act as Russian agents, which is an illogical and ridiculous verdict on its own, a ridiculous verdict that further exposes the absurdity and political nature, nakedly political nature of this entire prosecution, which was a prosecution by the colonial state attempting to silence the free speech of African and colonized people fighting for their liberation. So I'm very honored to introduce this segment, and I will be joined by attorneys Angela Rainey and Leonard Goodman to talk about the significance of this appeal. And then I will be joined by an incredible comrade who's joined the ranks of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee, Mia Perry. And I'll be talking a little bit more before I bring on Mia about another really important related front of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee, which is the political campaign to call for the elimination, the repealing of these colonial, illegitimate, repressive, anti-democratic laws of the Foreign Agent Registration Act, the 951 Foreign Agent Law, and the conspiracy laws that were used in this case and have been used historically to attack movements by African and oppressed peoples for their liberation. So before I turn it over to our two attorneys who have joined us, and we have some questions for them, I also just want to salute the entire Uhuru 3 legal team, Mataki Akbar, Addie Griffin, Tom Inskeep, as well as the two brilliant attorneys who have joined us, Angela and Leonard, and also salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the political leadership that the chairman provided and the strategy for the entire fight back and the understanding that this was a political trial and that it necessitated a political counteroffensive as a response. And I also want to recognize other members of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee, Zoe, of course, Chimaranga and all of his leadership, Reginald, Belinda, Colin, Jess from the National Lawyers Guild, Lauren from the Civil Liberties Defense Center, Audrey from the National Lawyers Guild, Jennifer Jones, the lead attorney for Leonard Peltier, Julie Chevalker from Project South, and many others who have played a really important role. So now we turn to a discussion with two of our attorneys to talk about the significance of this appeal, why this appeal is so important, why every single person who believes in free speech, who believes in the right of African and colonized people to advocate and organize for their liberation should see this appeal as the absolute cutting edge of the anti-colonial free speech fight that continues to this day. So I want to just again welcome attorneys Leonard Goodman and Angela Rainey, and start off with a question for both of you, which is you've each played an incredibly important role in this this entire fight, including authoring the motion for dismissal that, as the chairman said, really drew first blood in this case as far as the First Amendment was concerned. And you've been there every step of the way, and you are still here playing a huge role in pushing forward this appeal. Why do you feel this is so important, regardless of what the verdict was, to make this appeal successful to overturn this conspiracy charge?
Well, I'll go first. It is an important case. Thanks, Jesse. And, you know, as Penny was talking about, you know, people being snatched off the street, immigrants for dissenting views. Here we have a case, the Uhuru 3 are 3 U.S. citizens with all the rights and privileges of citizens. And the government did not like their advocacy. In particular, I would say the real crime here was that they were telling the truth about the war in Ukraine at a time when the government was intent on selling that war. And the result is that hundreds of thousands, probably, of both Russians and Ukrainians are dead. The war is going to wrap up at some point and could have been avoided if people would listen to smart people like Chairman Yeshitela and allow dissenting views. But that's something that our government is not tolerating. So we have to fight back. We have to win this appeal. I think we have a good chance of winning. You know, as you all explained, it's about free speech. And we have a judge that finally, at the sentencing, admitted that this was all political speech.
Right.
Now, if he had admitted that a year and a half earlier, the case would have been dismissed. So now we're up in front of an appellate court, a 3-judge panel will decide this case. And I think we have a real good shot in this climate to show that Citizens have a right to disagree with their government. You cannot be criminally prosecuted. And as Jesse also said, and I think Angela could probably speak to this maybe better than myself, and that is this bogus conspiracy charge. It was completely, first of all, it makes no sense. How do you conspire? How do you enter into an agreement to conspire to be somebody's agent? It made no sense. The government explained it to the jury in closing argument, and they did it in a dishonest way. They said all it means is you just have to have a partnership with a Russian. If you have a partnership with a Russian, you're guilty. Well, the appellate court's going to have to take a look at that because that's not the law. And so I think, I feel very confident that we're going to have a very strong appeal. I think we have a good chance to win. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. I thank you all for your support.
Thank you. Thank you, Leonard.
And I'll add to that. I agree, with everything that Lynn said. And I mean, one of the important things to point out here too is this conspiracy was actually the failure to register for working with the Russian government. The government acknowledges that there's nothing wrong with working for the Russian government. But it was just the failure to register. Of course, here we absolutely do not, the Uhuru 3 were not working with the Russian government, and we want to challenge that fact and make that clear. But the jury did acquit them of actually doing that. But it doesn't make sense that you can conspire to not register, especially where it was acknowledged by the government that there was nothing indicating that the Uhuru 3 even knew about a registration requirement. So it's a really important issue there. And one of the things that's very important to me is we have a chance to make a huge impact with this case in the 11th Circuit. So we would have made an impact if we had won in the district court on this First Amendment issue. But if we can win on this issue in the 11th Circuit, that's going to make a huge impact across the country for other people that are facing charges similar to this with other First Amendment issues. So, it is important because what the government is doing by attacking political activists is they're going to silence other political activists that want to raise these issues. So we want to set a precedent that the government can't prosecute someone for their protected speech.
Thank you, Angela. And that speaks to another question. Maybe we can, if Leonard, if you have anything else to say on that as well. What you said, Angela, is so important, and I remember you talking about that at the press conference right after the sentencing, that being able to appeal this actually presents us with the greatest possible opportunity to set a precedent. And if you could both just speak a little bit more to what is the precedent or precedents that could be set in winning this appeal. I mean, we know what it means in terms of overturning the conviction of the Uhuru 3, but it's much bigger than that and can have consequences for the whole question of free speech.
I think really what the crime is if you say something that agrees with the views of a country or the position of a country that the United States says is a bad country or is something that is an authoritarian country. So that can't be the law. That's un-American. I mean, we're taught growing up that we have freedom of speech. You have the right to say the emperor has no clothes. You have the right to criticize your government. Well, that is all at risk right now. And I think it's gonna be up to judges really to stand up and say, yes, the First Amendment means what it says. Congress shall make no law. So I think that's really important. I think the other thing that Jesse was talking about and Angela as well is about conspiracy. The federal government loves to charge conspiracies. I've probably represented 25 people charged with conspiracy, and generally they round up a group of usually Black and brown people and charge them with conspiring with each other to sell drugs or to do something else. It generally is very confusing to jurors. They don't understand what it means. The government loves it because partly because of that. And a lot of times jurors don't understand how serious these charges are. They think, oh, it's an agreement. It can't really carry serious penalties. Well, there's plenty of people doing life sentences for a conspiracy to sell drugs, basically living in public housing and being part of a group that maybe sold drugs, or some people did. And the government loves to get people to tell on each other and put them away for a long time. So I think to take a look at conspiracy law is going to be very important as well. And in this case, it's particularly nonsensical, as Angela and Jesse explained. So yeah, I think it has a chance to set really important precedent for free speech and also for federal law.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leonard and Angela. And the next question I wanted to ask both of you is, and you've touched on this already, the question of conspiracy, the First Amendment. And I think anyone who attended that trial will remember that I think that judge was very aware that this case was going to be appealed. He seemed to express that numerous times. He kept saying, well preserved to all the objections. And then towards the end, he said, I think at the sentencing, he said, maybe the 11th Circuit will straighten me out. So there were a lot of issues that came up before and during the trial, starting with the motion for dismissal that we can expect to see in the appeal. To the extent that you can at this point, if you could just talk a little bit about what are some of the issues that will be raised in this appeal?
Well, I'll let Angela talk about the conspiracy issue because she researched that. But the political speech, the First Amendment, is going to be front and center. And so obviously, if the judge had granted the motion to dismiss, which he should have, and sort of in a backhanded way admitted at the sentencing, that probably we were right about that. If he had granted that, the case never would have gone to trial. So as Jesse mentions, well, maybe in some way it's good because now we can set a precedent in one of the highest courts in the country, which is a federal appellate court. The only higher court is the U.S. Supreme Court. So, obviously we would have liked to have won this case and gotten the case dismissed, but now we're up in the appellate court. So we also, we can't just assume that they're going to agree with us on the First Amendment. So we're also going to allege the errors that happened at the trial. And one of them is that we were not proven guilty of a conspiracy. There was no evidence of a conspiracy. The government misled the jury in order to get that conviction. They told the jury that they just need to find a partnership. Now you're allowed to have a partnership with a Russian. You're allowed to join forces if you're a not-for-profit. You're allowed to work with people from other countries, even if it's countries that our State Department doesn't like. That's legal. So, what was the crime here? So we're going to look at that. There was some dirty tricks the government played at the very end of the trial that the court will take a look at. So those are the issues that will be front and center on the appeal. And Angela may have more to say about that.
Sure. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, one of the issues that we're going to raise is the fact that you can't conspire to commit a crime that you don't know is a crime. So, and the government acknowledged that the Uhuru 3, there is no evidence that they knew that they had to register, that there was even any registration requirement. So that will be one of the issues. And we'll be looking over what we think are the most important issues from the trial to raise some more in the appeal.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. And just a couple more quick questions. I know everybody that's been paying attention to this case and supporting it is really curious to know kind of where we're at in this process now, what it's looking like for the time frame of the appeal process. And I know some of that is impossible to nail down, but as far as what we do know, if you could share any of that with our audience.
Well, what we do know is the brief is due mid-May, I think May 19th, I believe. We do intend to file it on that date. And after that, things will move fairly fast. The government will file their brief. The court may give them one extension, but The case will be fully briefed probably by the fall, and we're expecting that we'll have an oral argument at some point. And I would say a year is a fairly good estimate for when we will end up with a decision from the 11th Circuit, but there's no way to tell. There is no speedy trial clock for appeals, but that's sort of based on prior experience in the appellate courts.
Great, and I'll direct this last question to you, Angela, and then if there's anything else either of you wants to say before we move forward. And first of all, I like that the appeal brief is due May 19th. That's also Malcolm X, Ho Chi Minh, and Yuri Kuchiyama's birthday. So that sounds good to me. Very appropriate. And the question for you, Angela, is how can people and organizations that are out there support this appeal?
So we've reached out to a few organizations to try to obtain an amicus brief. If there is another organization that has, believes they have an important perspective to add to what we're doing, that they can reach out to us, and anyone can contact Jesse for our contact information. The other thing is obviously financial support. These appeals are not cheap. Transcripts can cost thousands of dollars, as we're seeing, and just the amount of time that it's going to take to develop these legal issues and present them to the court so we have the best chance of succeeding. So I would say that's the support that we need in this appeal to set this up so we can succeed.
Great. Thank you, Angela. And I did see a quick question here. Someone, Leah, an amazing comrade of the Uhuru movement, was asking, if there are oral arguments, where would that happen? Where would that take place?
I believe
that would be
Atlanta, right? Right, Angela?
Yes, that would be in Atlanta. That's where the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals is located.
All right. Great. Well, thank you so much, attorneys Leonard Goodman and Angela Rainey. And is there anything else that you want to say? And by the way, absolutely welcome and encouraged to stay on. I think there's going to be some discussion later on as well. But anything at this point that you'd like to say before we move forward in our program?
Nothing here. Just Uhuru. Thank you all for your support, and thank you, Uhuru 3, for your courage and standing up to the government, which is not easy, I can tell you. So
certainly, and it's an honor to work on the case, and I'm looking forward to the appeal.
Yes.
Uhuru. Thank you so much. Uhuru. Attorneys Leonard Goodman and Angela Rainey. Thank you so much. And Uhuru Cherumwezi.
Thank you so much, comrades. Just wanted to join in united, and I'm really appreciating comrades and attorneys, Leonard Goodman and Angela Rainey, who what we must add to are two of the forces that have taken this on pro bono, and which is a huge contribution to this fight back, and just very powerful stance as we are going to win once again. So many victories to come, and thank you, comrades, for those updates and great questions. And I want to appreciate that question by Leah as well, so comrades can start to mobilize in Atlanta as well. Chair Jesse, did you have any did you wanted to add anything else for this section, or just wanted to be clear before we move on?
Yes, I just wanted to say just a few quick words about the repeal FARA and 951 campaign, and then bring on Mia for a moment before we go forward, if that's
okay. Yes, right on. Uhuru.
Okay. All right, so I'll go through this quick. I think I'm running out of time, but I just really want to appreciate attorneys Leonard Goodman and Angela Rainey for that great discussion. And yes, I'm really excited to bring on the next speaker, who has recently joined the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee. And our understanding from Chairman Omali Shatella, our leadership, is that law is the opinion of the ruling class, and that in this country, the colonizer creates the law, but the law is illegitimate. And a glaring example of that are these laws that we're looking at that were wielded as weapons against the chairman and the Uhuru 3. And that is why we are taking this struggle into the streets and building a campaign to mobilize for the US government to repeal the Foreign Agent Registration Act and its related statute, 18 USC 951, as well as the conspiracy law that Leonard and Angela just talked about extensively in the previous discussion. And one of the great comrades who has joined this effort is Mia Perry. And I'm just going to read the bio real quick, Mia, and welcome you on. So, born and raised in Long Beach, California, Mia has several years of experience organizing community outreach and field initiatives. Her background includes legislation for BIPOC communities, grassroots campaign organizing, and forming connections and community for different marginalized groups. A descendant of Japanese political prisoners interned in the American concentration camps during World War II, Mia believes that the Black liberation movement is central to freeing all oppressed people. And it's been a great pleasure to work with you, Mia, and I'm really excited to have you on to talk a little bit about yourself and your involvement in this work and what you're going to be doing on this campaign. So I'll turn it over to you. Uhuru.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Uhuru, everyone. As Jesse stated, I'm Mia, and I'm a volunteer with the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee. Very, very excited to be working alongside Jesse, helping to research and create strategy for a campaign aimed at repealing foreign agent and conspiracy laws that have historically targeted Black liberation and grassroots activist movements, and as we see most recently, the Uhuru 3. Our political campaign will be targeted not only at the education of the masses on this topic, but we will be drafting legislative language aimed to revoke these biased laws. What the Uhuru 3 were charged with is a threat to us all. As Jesse stated, I come from grandparents that were forcibly imprisoned in concentration camps during World War II, solely based on the fact that they were Japanese. The Uhuru 3 is a case of intimidation by the US government, just as they attempted to intimidate my grandparents in the camps. They want to silence movements like us, but we will not grow silent. We will grow louder and more vigorous with our organizing. Working on this campaign is not only very personally important to me, it's pivotal to change the long existing dynamic of the US government firing at African liberation movements with no consequence. From COINTELPRO to the Uhuru 3, the fascist government will stop at nothing to silence the voices of those who are just speaking the truth of their everyday oppression. The Black liberation movement is central to liberating all oppressed and colonized people across the world, and we must continue to act as steady allies in solidarity to break down the walls of imperialism on an international spectrum. I stand with the Uhuru 3, and I'm so very excited to help progress this campaign, advocating for the free speech of African people everywhere. So everyone, please stay tuned, stay updated, and stay active with our upcoming campaign. Uhuru, thank you so much.
Uhuru, wow. Thank you so much, Mia. That was incredibly powerful. And just really, really appreciate you and your stance and your work on this campaign. So I just want to close out this segment by saying to everybody who's listening, if you're inspired by what you just heard from Mia, to join this campaign, join the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee. If you are a lawyer, a law student, a legal worker involved in looking into legislation, crafting legislation, researching, organizing files, writing summaries, etc., contact info@handsoffuhuru.org, and we will be in touch with you to invite you to our next meeting. And I also do want to also echo Angela and encourage people to donate, make a pledge. Let's raise the rest of the $38,500 needed to fund this appeal and take this victory from the courts to the streets and from the streets to the courts. We are winning. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Comrade Chair Jesse. I really want to appreciate that. Just that entire, segment. One, just giving everybody an update. And I really want to welcome Comrade Mia. It's really great to meet you, and just your energy and just what you're going to be bringing to this fight back is really exciting. So just really want to appreciate that overview and invite everybody to also be like Mia, join one of the committees of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. You can also do that by going to handsoffuhuru.org/volunteer and looking at the various ways to get involved. So Uhuru. All right, I see Chairwoman Penny there. And I also just want to make another call. Again, go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Help us reach our goal. And I want to thank those who have already donated as already. I think I have a roster of some of the names. I just want to thank a few people if I can. I want to thank Comrade Leah, MQ, Andrea, Janet, Stephanie, Ruby, and Brendan, who have already gone to handsoffuhuru.org. And we are, so far we have raised $230. Actually, I think that number is old. It might be $350 that we've raised so far towards our goal. So let's keep it coming, comrades. Handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Thank you, comrades. Uhuru MQ. Uhuru, comrade. All right, Chairwoman Penny. So,
Ooh.
all right, Uhuru.
Well, I just really want to also join in saluting not only our profound comrade attorneys, Leonard Goodman and Angela, but also welcome Mia. Did I say that right? Mia or Maya? And really,
Mia, thank you.
Mia, thank you, Mia. That was a really moving and powerful statement that you made. Thank you so much for your support and coming forward today. And I know that should we go on, I just wanted to also salute our comrades Unión del Barrio, by the way. We didn't say their name,
Yeah.
but they were instrumental in building so much of the resistance of the Mexican community in the recent, just literally tens of thousands of people came out to protest the current deportations in Los Angeles. But Unión del Barrio, in addition to that, has been there for 30 years or more, and is a very, very close comradeship with the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. Truly, truly important. Really want to salute all of you, comrades. So it's an honor to know Unión del Barrio.
Indeed, indeed it is. And you know, we understand that our struggles are inextricably linked. And, you know, there's a historical, truth to why we are on the right side of the question when it comes to the ending of colonialism and putting power back in the hands of the workers and the oppressed and toiling masses of the world. So I want to join you as well, Chairwoman Penny, and salute those comrades. And we will have them on, very soon, again, on a webinar so we can discuss just what that front is looking like, because the question of deportations is nothing new to, colonized people who are being told that they are foreign agents or, foreign aliens on their own stolen land. And so this is a very important discussion that we have to continue to talk about. So, we did say that so two of our speakers were unable to make it, but we still have some preparations around so comrades can hear about. So I'm going to turn it to Chairwoman Penny. We're just going to say a few words about Comrade Pam Africa and what she would like to talk about on today. So Uhuru Penny.
Uhuru, yes, and we do want to have a Comrade Pam Africa on in the future.
Yeah.
She has, first of all, been a longtime friend of the Uhuru movement for many years, based in Philadelphia. She represents the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal, and she is a leader and founder of Friends and Family of Mumia Abu-Jamal, who is a political prisoner forced into this colonial prison system that we see inside the US. And Pam has really helped build support for Mumia all over the world. And she is also a part of the MOVE organization, which is an organization and collective of African people that in 1985, their headquarters and home was bombed, literally firebombed by the city of Philadelphia and I believe also the governor of Pennsylvania, killing 11 African men, women, and children in the fire that burnt down an entire neighborhood. So Pam is a very, very important friend and comrade and friend of the Uhuru movement. She also attended the trial and the sentencing recently in September and December, and we just had a brief clip of her. We do want to have her on soon, also with Ramona Africa, who is one of the Move 9 we hope to have them on in the future, but we do have a powerful brief clip of Pam speaking at, I believe this was at the trial or the sentencing in Florida.
Mumia, free Mumia, free the Fantastic Three. Yes, the fantastic, the phenomenal three who brought all of us here together. This government is a bunch of fools. A bunch of fools. And because what they have done through the terrorism, and they should be made to pay financially as well. And they should do jail time because they broke every law of humanity when they went into our community, kidnapped, terrorized, and shut down the radio programs that was, had. They tried to stop the programs of educating people in the community, giving jobs to the community. I'm saying, the charges against Uhuru 3 is clear. They're false. They were found innocent. There's nothing to do now, and because it's evident. Each and every last one of us is here because of the evidence. When our brother talked about the sister who said about the elephant who stomped his feet and thousands came, and we're the forefront of that thousand, the ones that you will see. But we represent millions. I said millions around the world that is watching and prepared to do what is necessary if they do the wrong thing as they usually do. With that, I'm saying we're waiting, we're listening, because that elephant foot is up like this. And God help these monsters if the foot hit the ground.
Yeah.
Long live revolution. Long live the Uhuru 3. Long live the people who came here on the front line to witness and to do what is necessary.
So much.
True.
Free moment. It's like she's right here. Pam, Comrade Pam is the
So
force.
powerful. Yes.
Uhuru. Yeah. So, and that what you just heard there was, free Mumia, which is another, fight back that the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition is adopting, and we want to continue to, bring Comrade Pam on, like Penny said, Sister Ramona Africa as well, and, get that comrade home, now.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Uhuru.
Yes. Mia, not one more year.
Now one more year. Yep. Right on. Uhuru, comrade. So again, we just want to remind comrades to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/coalition. Learn about this fight back, and join this fight back. Bring your struggles here, comrades. We can win when we work together. And did you have anything else to say, Chairwoman Penny, before we move? I'm gonna just say some things about our next guest.
Well, no.
Marcia.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. All right. So comrades, as we said, we're unfortunate we couldn't have Comrade Sister Marcia Adebayo on today's call, but we just want to say talk a little bit about the importance of her work. And there is a slide. I don't know if the slide is ready, so that's okay. But just so that everybody knows a little bit about who Marcia Adebayo is and who she's representing. So she's here on behalf of the Moses Cemetery, struggle. And I want to just say a few words about what this is and what's happening. So there is a campaign to stop the erasure of the Moses African Cemetery. And this is also known as the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. And they are calling on everybody, who believes in, just the sanctity of, history to stand in defense of the Moses African Cemetery. This is it's a sacred burial ground where, Africans, many of our ancestors rest. And this has been a target of, desecration, historical erasure, and now violent intimidation against, those who are, daring to help protect this, sacred land. And in the month of March, and just want to say that the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition and our movement has also adopted this fight back, and we're going to stand behind and stand with these comrades. And in the month of March, they put out a call to let everybody know about many of the supporters of the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. They were, they had experienced, vicious verbal assaults and threats, by these, parasitic developers. Many individuals of this coalition were stalked. They were intimidated, being forced, and even Comrade Paul Pumphrey, who many of you might know as well, a big supporter of the movement. Also, thank you, Comrade, for putting that up there. He was, he had to, seek refuge in a local business from, just from these intimidation attacks. And these agents, they spewed, verbal assaults, threats, slurs, calling Marsha Adebayo, other slurs, and just really crazy stuff, comrades. And these comrades were also, this is all happening without any support from Maryland or Montgomery County, elected officials who have refused to denounce the desecration of this land. And so in the month of March, and, Women's History Month, the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition put this out because, what you have buried here are young African girls, whose bodies were literally used to, they were victims of rape, and to help produce and to reproduce enslaved Africans. And so for the month of March, they said here, quote, "We honor the legacy of Black women and girls buried at Moses African Cemetery, many of whom endured unimaginable suffering. Historical records reveal the horrors of slavery on this land, where young African girls were held captive, raped, and forced into childbirth as part of the brutal system of exploitation. They say more than 60% of these little girls, many of them under the age of 10, died in labor, and their bodies were discarded, dumped like a refuse on this very ground, and we are now here to fight to protect it." And so, thank you. And so as you can see on the screen, our engineer is kind of giving you more information about how you can learn more about what is happening. And we want to call on everybody to, to join this, fight back as well. This is really powerful work that those comrades are doing, and we want to help protect this land. So, and I know the chairman would probably have some more to say on this as well, but we want to salute Comrade Marsha Adebayo. She will be here with us. And the chairman wrote here, many of these in the chat on Zoom, many of those Africans buried at the Moses Cemetery are girls, yes, some as young as 10 years old, thank you, chairman, who were raped to provide wealth for the system. Exactly. And so we can't let this happen. We can't let this land be erased. So Uhuru, I just wanted to say those few words. Chairwoman Penny, looks like you were going to say.
Powerful, powerful. I'm so glad we have these slides on as well. This is a very powerful struggle, and
yeah,
really want to join in saluting Marsha Adebayo.
There she is right there on that screen there with the mic. That's just one clip of her.
Great
So
picture.
thank you, comrade. Yeah. So defend Moses African Cemetery, and we look forward to having Comrade Marsha Adebayo on with us soon. And without further ado, we are right on track on time. So I'm going to remind everybody to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate to help us reach our goal. And we have some more donations, and I can just read off some names and we'll say the amounts later. But I want to also thank Janine, Ali, as well as Penny and Johan, who have all gone to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. We are we're getting closer to halfway towards our goal for today, and closer to our goal of 39,500 towards the appeal for the Uhuru 3. So without further ado, comrades, I'm going to bring up and introduce our keynote speaker. I'll just say a few words about Chairman Amalia Shatella, who is going to give us the analysis of this current, environment, this political environment, the current world situation, from the cutbacks to Trump to, everything that we are experiencing under this fight back. Chairman Amalia Shatella is is a veteran in the Black Power movement. And this fight back for the Uhuru Three would not have been successful in the way that it was without the leadership of Chairman Amalia Shatella. The chairman has built the African People's Socialist Party, as we said, to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. And in that process, the chairman, resolved many of the unresolved questions and problems of the Black Revolution, including the question of what to do with the white people, white solidarity with the Black Liberation Movement, which is why the Uhuru Three was chairman, was Penny, and was Jesse. The chairman also helped to build economic institutions to help us, be prepared for when we are going to be a self-governing people. And these over 50 economic institutions are another reason why the US government felt that it was necessary to attack the Black liberation struggle in the forms of the African People's Socialist Party, and their main target was Chairman Amalia Shatella. So I know the chairman is getting in place. So I just wanted to just say those few words, Chairman, while you have a chance to come on camera. But it's just a great honor to have you here, Chairman, and there you are. So Uhuru, comrade, Chairman.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Thank you so much, Comrade Sister Mwezi, for the introduction. And I just want to express my appreciation to everyone who is here, especially to the two other persons who comprise the Uhuru Three, the incredible lawyers that we have who defended us in these cases. And we talk about this case. I'm struck by the fact that we are talking about the issue of free speech, but it's not just any speech. In fact, one of the things that happened in the court was certainly in this process, the question of free speech was raised, and the fact that they attacked me in part because of what was said about the Ukraine. About the U.S. Using Ukraine, creating a Ukraine crisis, Ukraine contradiction, as a means of attacking Russia, something that the United States government has been involved in for more than 100 years now, going all the way back to the Russian Revolution of 1917, 1918. The United States was a part of all of the colonial powers, including Japan, that actually invaded Russia. And they invaded Russia, of course, because Russia had refused, after the Russian Revolution, to participate with the other colonial powers in this process of redividing the world that ended up creating with the Balfour Declaration, where England gave of Palestine to European Jews, the breaking up of and defining these areas that we now know as Lebanon and Syria and Palestine. All of these things have been created for the purpose of redividing the world, and of course the Russians did not participate. In fact, Trotsky was one of those persons who represented the Russian government, or the Bolshevik revolution at that time, that told the world what was going on, because the U.S. and the powers that tried to bring Russia into this project thought they could bring Russia into this project, especially with the Balfour Declaration, because part of the Russian leadership were Jews like Trotsky, and there were others. And so they assumed that there would be an interest there in the project that they wanted to initiate. This is following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, where they were going to redivide the world. And in this process of dealing with this case, we made the claim that the attacks were made on us in part because of that, the Ukrainian question and other things. And the government's suggestion was, in response, I think, to something that Comrade Leonard Goodman may have raised, that even if we had talked about Russian cuisine, and it was done at the direction of Russia, we would have been facing these charges, because that we would have been committing a crime. Well, I just want to make it clear we were not talking about Russian cuisine, and that the fundamental thing that happened in that trial, the fundamental thing that took us to this trial, is the fact that we were talking about colonialism. And we were not only talking about colonialism in some abstract kind of way. We were talking about colonialism the way Marcus Garvey talked about it, the way Malcolm X talked about it, the way the Black Panther Party talked about it, the way the Black Revolution of the 60s talked about it, the way Amilcar Cabral talked about it, the way Frantz Fanon talked about it. This was not an academic discussion. They understood that the African People's Socialist Party, when we talked about the question of colonialism, we were talking about the intent to govern. That African people, like all other peoples on the planet Earth, with any sense of national integrity, dignity, want to require African people to have our own self-governing capacity. That's a dignified stance that we were taking. And this was something that the United States government was compelled to attack us for, using the whole issue of working for the Russians as the basis for that. And the thing that made it complicated in some instances, this issue, is because, generally speaking, much of what has characterized itself as the left in this country has refused to recognize the legitimacy of African demands for self-determination, for self-government, the recognition of colonialism as the contradiction that we're dealing with. And this goes back for the longest period of time. It hasn't just been the government. The government is a colonial government. We're talking about a colonial project. We're talking about a project that stems from a colonial mode of production that came into existence something like 600 years ago, when Portugal first started this project, first with their attack on Africa that forcibly dispersed African people all around the world, created the world economy for the first time in history, turned the entire world more or less into a common kind of society where various kinds of economic laws prevail. And so there was a mode of production that came into existence. And many people call themselves Marxists and leftists who usually respect the notion of a mode of production when it talks about capitalism, talks about feudalism, etc. They're able to do that, generally speaking, because they talked about capitalism, they talked about feudalism, they talked about themselves as central figures. That the colonized have simply been objects of history, and the colonizers have been subjects of history. So everything revolved around that. And even when Marx made profoundly important statements, recognizing in many ways, by definition, certainly the fact that African people, that we're looking at a colonial mode of production, he said it in a fashion that that helped us come to the conclusion that African people, or helped everybody come to the conclusion, based on his definition, that African people were simply auxiliaries to the development of Europe and European society. He said, the beginning of capitalism is something that came about as a consequence of turning Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of black skins. He said it had to do with turning of the indigenous people in what is now known as the Americas into the mines, bringing up gold and silver for value that contributed to the emergence of capitalism itself. And he said it was the brutality and war that was being made in the East Indies, talking about current India and that particular area of the world, that constituted this, what he called as a primitive accumulation of capitalism, development that resulted in Marx being able to write Capital and have the life that he had in Europe, and Europeans' development and existence at our expense. So this is something that I think is really important to understand. And so a lot of the left, who automatically one would think should be supporters of the struggle against colonialism, have been unable to do that because they have not been able to accept the right of black people, in many instances of Mexican and other people, to have independent right to self-government. In fact, in many instances, I've had to intervene. I have intervened in struggles where the left was arguing that even the Mexican people did not have a right to be self-determining, that to do so and demand it was to divide what they call the multinational working class, that black people talking about liberation was dividing the multinational working class, which is nonsense. And but that was the struggle that we were engaged in. That was the struggle we engaged in the courts as well. This whole denial of the ability and the right of African people to talk, to have agency, that we are not just objects being moved and defined in a way that supports the development and continuing existence of the society that some people have become comfortable with. So much so that so much comfort is here that anytime it's disrupted, they claim fascism and fascism. This thing that was created when some of the features of colonialism that all colonized people, Africans, Mexicans, Palestinians, peoples around the world, the things that the brutality, the total abrogation of anything that constitute rights and what have you. When this happens, it's such an unusual phenomenon when it begins to penetrate into the colonial, to European society. And when I say European, I'm talking about inside the United States as well. That they've come up with a characterization for it called fascism. And so now the colonized people who are fighting against our own oppression that the whole system rests upon cannot fight and cannot expect to win solidarity traditionally from the colonizers, that is to say, the white population, in this struggle. Instead, we have to deal and come up with the question of fascism and unite with the struggle of white people as they're experiencing the possibilities and perhaps the existence of repression, political repressions happening in their lives. But fascism is an aberration. It is not something that exists all the time. Colonialism is not an aberration. It happens all the time for African people. We live with it all the time. So, I mean, these are some things I just want to make clear, that we're not just talking about this question of oppression and free speech in the abstract. And we do believe in free speech, and we fight for free speech. But who would fight harder for free speech than the colonized? The fact is that, as we've said over and over again, when the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights were created and ratified in the United States in 91, African people were property. There was no presumption of rights of Black people to have freedom of speech, assembly, or anything like that. In fact, Nat Turner was put on trial in 1831 for striking out and trying to win liberation. But even the trial is unusual because the fact is usually they were simply take an African out and murder, burn, tear apart, and do other kinds of horrible things. So we're saying that the colonizer makes the law. The slave owners make the law, make the law in a slave society. And even though the slave owner makes the law and defines and decides what is legal, the colonizers make the law and decide what is legal. The law is the colonialism itself is illegitimate. So you have an illegitimate entity that has imposed itself by force, by guns and whips and things like that on the masses of people, and then said, this is law. My oppression of you is legal. Slavery was not illegal. It was law. To try to free ourselves from slavery was breaking the law. That was illegal. And that's the kind of contradiction that we came into this process facing. But we recognize that free speech is a really important thing. And we don't necessarily require people who don't unite with our colonial analysis to say, okay, we don't want you to support us. But what we do say is that your freedom, as quiet as it's kept, rests upon a foundation of my oppression and exploitation. And so supporting the struggle of African people for free speech ultimately is supporting you, because if we didn't have free speech when the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights were created, then it wasn't made for us, it was made for you. And what they're doing is playing a shell game, that they will attack you through coming at us. And they will attack you because they have to quiet all dissent, all people who would struggle against the existing setup. Because it is a terrible time for the social system. That's why Palestinians have to be killed. Battleships moving to crush a movement of 3 million people on a tiny piece of land in Palestine. I think it's something like 3 miles wide and 25 miles long, this territory, etc. Battleships being used, armored vehicles, and battle geared military forces, and in the name of the FBI, attacking the poorest section of St. Louis to come and crush us because of what we had to say, not because we did anything, what we had to say. And what we had to say was a critical question, because the whole social system is experiencing crisis now. It's experiencing crisis internally. It's experiencing crisis in terms of trying to defend the social system, or certainly, if not the social system itself, but defending the current world order that has been dominated for the last 80 years or so, unquestionably almost, by the United States. Now Russia, China, other countries are involving in this struggle from the outside, if you will, and then oppress people from the inside. And everything that the United States has attempted to do to unite the colonizer population, everything that's tried to do has been for and all of the goodies it's attempted to give the colonized people, the colonizers, goodies such as now homosexual women, up until Trump, able to come into the military and help kill people who are in Yemen, help police people who are in the so-called ghettos in this country and barrios in this country. They can do that now. They can be a part of the team. And this, of course, eliminates or obscures or minimizes the potential for struggle within the colony, among the colonizers, and allows the United States to pull all of these forces together to dominate everybody else. But we fought them. And the reason we are having this discussion, the significance of what it is that we are doing now, and is to win as many as we can people to around the issue of free speech, but also recognizing that Africans have a right to free speech. And what has happened, what I may be saying now may sound peculiar to some people, because they did kill Malcolm, they did kill Garvey. They didn't just kill them physically, they erased their history, they erased what they stood for. The ruling class did that. The New York Times, that wouldn't report anything, did that. The Washington Post contributed to that. Your school boards contributed to that. And so they would crush us and then put in place of this remarkable movement that was fighting for dignity, that was fighting for the happiness of African people, for control of our own lives, for being able to say that we know that our people will have a future, our children will have a future, because it will be in our hands. This thing that was crushed, and they replaced it with sycophants. They replaced it with the people like the Obamas and the people like the Kamala Harrises and the tame good Negroes, etc. And people like to talk about good trouble. They tamed it with people like that, who talked about good trouble, who did not shake up the status quo, whose interest was limited to the parameters that had political and economic and ideological parameters that had been defined by the system itself. So I wanted to say those things. And I want to say that we're talking about a colonial mode of production that doesn't just include African people and white people, includes everybody on earth. The primary dominant mode of production is a parasitic mode of production that sucks the blood, resources, life out of Africa, Asia, out of African communities, so-called Latino communities. It sucks it out. And when a poor person in Sierra Leone goes to look for clean water and can't find it, they can't find it because if there is clean water, it's coming out of a faucet someplace in America, or can't find housing because the resources that create housing, both physical and material resources that usually would create what should create housing in Sierra Leone, is creating houses someplace in England or someplace in the United States. This is the relationship we're talking about that has to be destroyed. That's what we are about. And we believe in free speech, but who would believe in free speech more than anybody? Than the African who was denied free speech, than the colonized who would be killed with mercilessly in very exemplary fashion for even speaking up. And no, the colonized cannot have free speech. The enslaved cannot have free speech. The freedom is illegal for the colonized. Freedom is illegal for the enslaved. What is What is an enslaved group of people going to talk about? Freedom of assembly. What you going to get together about if you're enslaved, if you're colonized, except to end that particular relationship? So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. And so we we're not talking about some transactional thing when we say we support Palestine. We support Palestine because Palestine is on the cutting edge, on the front line right now in the struggle against colonialism. It's not transactional. Somebody said, well, the Palestinians don't necessarily support us when we came out and we did this and we didn't get support from the Palestinians. I'm not going to debate whether the Palestinians came out when we looked at what happened here in Ferguson with the uprisings there. That's not even a question. It's not transactional. I'm not asking for you got to do this because we did that. Obviously, it's good if you do that because you recognize the contradiction that we're all confronted with as well. We do it because we know that to unite with the Palestinians is to unite against a colonial mode of production that holds everybody in slavery, and everybody ought to be able to do it based on that. And so I wanted to say that, and I'm not quite sure how I've done on time, but I have a hunch that I've probably overreached myself. I want to say
about 5 minutes or so, Chairman. You're
okay.
You're good on time.
Yeah, so I just think that it's really important. It's we're at a time in history now where we have to fight for the best definitions of the contradictions that we're suffering with. You can do this over and over again. It used to be a saying that everything for the movement, but nothing for the revolution. And that's the kind of thing that we have. We have people who will come out and do all kinds of protests, etc., and they feel good. There's nothing like a protest high. There's nothing like chanting and marching through the streets and the kind of high one can get from that. But that's not the issue. The issue, just protest alone will not satisfy our aspirations and what has to be done. We have to say, to what end? And we have to bring people back into a process of challenging the existing social system that brings that so that we can confer freedom on the people. And I'm saying this to help people understand that that's what they attacked us for. And I recognize that not everybody is going to be for that. But what I am saying that everybody should recognize and respect my right to say this, my right to believe this, and which is something the United States government could not do, would not do. And so that's part of what it is. And I think that it's really important for us to be in this meeting, and there are people who are in this meeting who recognize the validity of the rights of the colonized and oppressed people to take control of our own lives, our own resources, to fight and achieve our capacity to be happy, and to take back the resources that are responsible for that. Over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been remarkable what I've been looking at in terms of the books now suddenly published by ruling class media that will not even quote us. We're not even if we look at what happened to the trial. The time they said anything about us when we were going to trial, when they used the press, they used the indictments like press statements that came from the Justice Department that said that we were criminals and things like that. But they haven't said anything. They said this was a national security issue. You can't read anything about it now because they don't want this discussion to happen, but we're going to make this discussion happen, and we're going to change the law. And that's why you are so important. We have to raise the 39,000 plus to pay the money for this appeal. We have to do that. We have to get the word out. You have to help us share this information so that people can understand this reality, because the fact of the matter is that the system cannot stand without our cooperation, even if it's passive cooperation. So I'm not even talking about picking up a gun. I'm saying picking up a phone, picking up a computer. I'm saying get involved in supporting this case and spreading this case around the world, and hopefully at minimum having the ability, if you cannot unite with the struggle against colonialism and the right of African people globally, and that's what we're talking about, because our party, the organization I represent that they attacked, is the first time since Marcus Garvey that we've seen an all-African movement that organizes, unites the entire African world. We're in England, we're in Germany, we're in France, we are all over Europe, and we are also throughout Africa. I saw Visto, who was a part of the, here he is, Visto, who is on now. I can see him mentioning himself, and he is from Namibia. And there are Africans everywhere part of this movement. And because we intend to be free, Africa is going to be free. All the resources stolen from Africa, where we don't have clean water, or where we don't even have electricity in many instances, where they take all of the uranium and stuff like that from places like Niger, where they steal it from. France was the lead person in this instance. And we don't have lights in Niger, and that France uses the electricity that comes from the uranium from Niger to light itself up. This is the kind of reality that African people are confronted with, and we're taking it back. We have a right to feed, clothe, and house ourselves, to use the resources of Africa for the benefit of Africa. But the thing is that we're not involved in this to try to oppress anybody. And African resources, as it has always been the case, has been something that's accessible to the world, but Africa has to have access to its own resources. And this is, if you want to have a decent kind of society, historically, culturally, everything that there is to know about African people would help you to recognize that, in addition to being willing and able to fight for our future, that Africa has always been open kind of cultural society where everybody has had the ability to share the resources Africa has, but Africa has to fight in our own selfish interest to take those resources collectively and be able to build for Africa and African people globally, and we can do other things for the rest of the world. We unite with the indigenous people. We're on the front lines all the time. In fact, when we got here, the indigenous people were the only friends that we had. And we recognize that. That's not just a casual statement that we make. We recognize that. In fact, we are united by blood in many instances. When you look at the Spanish-speaking indigenous people that sometimes called Mexicans and other kinds of stuff like that, we are united by blood, even though some of us are too ignorant sometimes to recognize that, and sometimes find ourselves pitted against each other. We are involved in the same struggle against colonialism, and we can win, and we are winning. So I just wanted to say that, and thank everybody for being here. Also, come up with the 39,000 plus to pay off this issue, this question of the appeal. We have other issues that we have to deal with, the Uhuru 3. Most of you know that we were given a 3-year probation. We got to deal with that. Most of you know that we have to even have permission to travel and things like that. But I believe that can change. I believe that circumstances are happening in the world right now that's challenging most of the setup. And it ain't just Trump. Trump is a factor, but Trump is something that was given birth by the crisis. The crisis of the social system gave birth to Trump and gave birth to Trumpism, etc. So I wanted to say that, and I wanted to thank everybody for being here. We are winning. Adelante siempre. Uhuru.
Uhuru Venceremos, Uhuru Chairman.
Uhuru Chairman. Yes, great. Really want to appreciate that that statement, that overview, and like the chairman said, this is the time for us to, like you said, pick up a pen, pick up a phone, pick up, whatever we got to do, get on the ground, let's get organized. And I know we want to just salute some of the people who were here on the call, Chairman Penny, so I'll turn it to you as well. And thank you, Chairman Uhuru.
Well, I did want to, just really salute Chairman Omali Shatella for that powerful presentation, and what you were saying, that this is a time in history that requires the precise definitions of what the contradictions are and what the struggle is. And that's why you have fought for and continue to fight for the understanding of colonialism as the main contradiction, that African people and the attack on the party is not from racism. It is from the state, the colonial state that exists at the expense of African and oppressed people. So I really salute your presentation and your leadership in this whole Hands Off Uhuru struggle and in the world. So Uhuru and I just wanted to also take a minute to salute some of the comrades who are with us. And I know that, some people have had, that were here earlier are not here now, but I do want to salute Comrade Angelica from the Green Party. Comrade Bakary is on, Brendan, Diane, Don Hammonds from San Diego, Haki Kamati Muchoki, Comrade Indigo, Jackson, Janet Coburn, I'm really good to see you. I'm so glad. We're always very happy to have you on. Comrade Janice, Janine, just really want to salute John McCarthy and CPI, who are dearest friends, really have stood there from the very beginning. Always want to salute you, Comrade John. Kitty, Larry Wells is on. Comrade Leon Dixon, Lucas Bladis, MQ, our dear friend MQ is here. Margaret Busby, Maureen Doyle, Morgan Moses Jr., Missouri, Pombelli, Opa Hamilton, Comrade Paolo, the Peruvian Chasqui, which I believe means an Incan messenger. I looked that up, so that's very powerful. Comrade Paolo, salute you. Comrade Peg, a longtime supporter, really salute you. Richard Rossler from Hawaii, an organizer from Hawaii. Comrade Ruby, Stephanie, Tesha Kurt, and Zakele Mikonza, that's the chairman from Occupied Azania, or from, let me say this, from the continent of Africa, and Comrade Visto. So those are some of the people who have been on today. Just really want to salute all of you. And I see Comrade Ann is on, and Amanda. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Comrade S.G. Mwezi, Chair Mwezi.
Thank you, Comrade. Yeah, Chairman, were you going to say something? I saw you lean in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm so happy to see Mia Perry, and she talked about her grandparents, and we learned a lot from the Japanese. I mean, practically discussions, meetings we had, that even moving toward the tribunals that we had on reparations for African people, where we initiated that tribunal, said we were going to make reparations a household word. We learned it from Japanese, and Yuri Koshiyama was a dear comrade. I see Bakary Olatunji is here, and he frequently would pick her up and bring her to our meetings and things like that when she needed help getting around. So I think it's important. And I was doing an interview either today or yesterday. They've come so frequently, and somebody raised the question about Trump promising to destroy the deep state and whether or not he had kept his promise. And I think it's really important that forces are having to talk about the state. They call it the deep state, but the state is the state is the state. And this is something we've been talking about for years and years and years. And while there are people who would say that you got to go out and do something to this white person, that white person, et cetera, to fight back, they have not recognized the significance of the state. The state is the entity that protects the status quo. It is the entity. It is a bureaucracy that also constitutes the prison system, the court system, the military, the CIA, all that stuff that you see that's being fought around today with the Trump administration, within the Trump administration. That's the state. And typically, what you have in the United States and other countries like the United States is a nonviolent struggle for control of the state by contending sectors of the ruling class. And that nonviolent struggle is what you call elections, where people go out and run for office, and they hire supplicants, they hire people like the Obamas and the Harris, and they hire other folk out who are going to carry out their will, and they got a trick that the people think these politicians are working for us. They're working for these forces, and this nonviolent contest is what they engaged in, and they call it an election. And they do the elections because they want to control the state. which sector of the ruling class controls the state at any given time. And Trump was an accident in 2016 as far as they were concerned, and he did not end up with control of the state. And the CIA, the military, all those other forces, which is why Trump got elected, and the war was initiated against Trump by another sector of the ruling class. That even his campaign manager went to jail, and they were being jailed from some of the same things they're charging us with. And we understood that much of what we were dealing with in the courtroom revolved around this contest that was happening between sectors of the ruling class, whether they were going to have free speech or not. They took free speech from Trump. They took free speech from people who were supporting Trump. They drove a situation to a very desperate kind of contradiction. That's what we're looking at right now. Except now, much of what existed is passé. Trump has disrupted so much of that situation is passé. There's a whole new era that we've entered into. There's a whole new global political and economic configuration that's happening in the world today, and we are here now fighting for the interests of African people and the masses of people here and around the world. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Uhuru, very, very exciting. And I just wanted to say also that Deputy Chair Ona Zane Shatella just texted me that she's on YouTube, and about 30 or so more people are on YouTube right now. So just wanted to salute you, Deputy Chair Ona Zane, and just know that we have comrades over there as well. Uhuru.
Over there.
Yes, and everybody
Over
who's
there on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube and also on Facebook as well. We want to encourage everybody to share and, you know, continue to get this out there, and also want to appreciate everybody who's joining us. So yes, thank you, Deputy Chair. And yes, Uhuru, and I see a bunch of hearts on YouTube flying around now. There we go.
Oh, right on. You've seen the money flying around.
I know we want.
Let's pay this damn
Yeah.
eager bill so that we can have that behind us. You know,
Yes.
I'm not supposed to be doing that, but
Well, that's coming up next, Chairman. We
I'm
do
not
have
supposed to be
a
doing
very
that.
brief
Yeah.
appeal, and comrades Amanda and our one of our great volunteers, Comrade Ann, will be there to say more about that too. But Chairman, just in the chat, Mia did write, incredible what we can learn from each other. Thank you so much, Chairman. So I just wanted to read that statement and appreciate you, Comrade Mia. And yes, the struggle is not over, but we will be victorious. So Uhuru comrades, let's go ahead and move our program. And we're going to bring up two very important comrades in this struggle, Comrade Amanda and Comrade Ann. And these comrades will be taking us through a light fundraising call and some upcoming events that are helping us to reach this goal. So Uhuru. I see you there, Comrade Amanda. Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru, Chair Moisey, Vice Chair Penny. And Uhuru, Chairman, I agree. I think the money is flying in. That's what we're seeing so far, and we expect to get some more. And just want to also really appreciate Ann, who's here with us. Ann's one of the people that has joined the fundraising committee. So I'm very confident that we'll be able to raise the $39,500 remaining of this appeal before our deadline in July. So first, I want to thank Leah, who gave 100, MQ, who gave 20, Andrea, who gave 50, Janet, who gave 20, Stephanie, who gave 40, Ruby, who gave 100, Brendan, who gave 20, Janine gave 40, Allie gave 100, Penny gave 100, Johan gave 50, MQ again gave 20, Maureen gave 50, Angelica in the comments here pledged 100, and then the chairman and deputy chair gave 200. So Uhuru, that brings us to $1,000 so far just today. I know we can keep that going. So if we can pull up the slideshow, thank you so much. So we are moving into phase 3 of the fight back. And what we say is that when we fight, we win. And we saw the victory of the Uhuru 3 walking out of the courthouse with no fine, no prison time. And that is because of all of your support. That's because we raised the money for these amazing lawyers. That is because you showed up to the courthouse. So when the people come together and fight, we know that we can win. So we can go to the next slide here. And this is our slogan. And this is not just a fight to win the appeal. This is a fight against colonialism. And we have to get this campaign out even farther than it has already reached so that we can overturn this bogus conspiracy conviction. And like we heard, turn that into case law so that the state cannot use this particular attack again. And this is going to be a victory for the people, again, made possible by all of you. Next slide here, we have already raised in phase 3, $33,024. So that's amazing. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. And this is where we have remaining $39,500. Next slide here. And we do want to bring that in by July. So we're calling on people to make your pledge today. And breaking this down, it's just 395 people giving $100 each. So many of you today have already gone and done that. Thank you so much. It also could be 39 people doing $1,000 each, or 158 people doing $250 each. And we absolutely can do this. Literally thousands of people contributed over the past almost 3 years towards this campaign, anywhere from $1 to $70,000, and all of it added together. We want to close out this phase by the end of July, like the chairman was saying, so that we can move forward and do all of the other things that we need to do for this campaign, the work to appeal FARA and 951 and all of these other aspects that make this campaign so dynamic. But we want to get the money behind us. So I just want to say, if you want to be one of the 39 people giving 1,000, but you're thinking, I can't do that today, I don't have that money on me right now, make a pledge and you can raise that money over the next few months. You can hold a bake sale, a benefit show, host a poetry night, go door to door to your neighbors, talk to your family. And it's just $250 a month when you break it down that way. So it's absolutely something that we can find 39 people to do. I think those 39 people, I believe, are in this meeting today, and I think that you may be one of them. And also, it is tax season, and if you're one of the people that got a tax return, send some of that to the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. And I do just want to appreciate Ruby, who previously already pledged to be one of the 158 people to do 250. And then Jesse and myself each have pledged that as well by the end of July. So we are breaking down this goal. Go to the next slide here. How to give, go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. You can also make a check out to Hands Off Uhuru and send it to 2654 Gravois Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. Go to the next slide here. And again, we already did pay the down payments for the retainer agreements for Addie Griffin and for Mutaki Akbar. And I just want to again appreciate Leonard Goodman, who brought on Angela Rainey to our case, and they are pro bono. So we have not, for any of the aspects of this campaign, we have not had to pay them directly. So that's a huge contribution in and of itself. So we want to really appreciate them. Skip to slide 9 if you can. Oh, and Leah. Leah is going to be one of the people that pledges 1,000 by July. Uhuru. All right, Leah. Oh, and Janice. Wow. All right, that's 2. Janice pledged 1,000 by July. This is amazing. Jesse, who's sitting right next to me, if you can write those down for me.
You got it.
Thank you. Uhuru. Wow. And just want to really appreciate the fundraising committee as well. We have new people, Kelly, Jackie, and Anne. So I don't want to take up too much time. I want to turn it over to Anne, who had really great insight and leadership into how we can raise this money. And I just really appreciate Anne's confidence in what she was saying about how we can raise it. And just to say, with Leah and Janice, we only need 37 more people to pledge $1,000. So while you're listening to Anne, think about if you can be one of those people. So Uhuru, Anne.
Uhuru. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you to the chairman for your analysis, and the party, and Jesse, and Penny. And first, I just want to say the courage is such an inspiration, the courage of the Uhuru 3 and the leadership. And I think we need to really consider in this time, what do we want to invest in? What's important to us? What kind of world do we want to live in? And this organization, the African People's Socialist Party, gives us a vision for a world that's the kind of world that I want to live in. And I know for all of you that are on this call as well. And so I was thinking to myself, on a day-to-day basis, what do I need to do to be able to contribute? So we've talked about the people who can give $1,000, but what about those of us who feel like, well, maybe I could give 100. How am I going to do that? Well, I broke it down, $7.14 a week. So when I think of that for myself, I think of, well, that's a cup of coffee, or maybe it's, who knows, one less movie during the month. I mean, it's almost nothing, right? And so I think we really need to think about that. If we put that front and center, how do we support this process? How can we win? Where do we want to invest our money? So I'm going to pledge the $100 by July, and that means that today I'll put in $28. Is that for this month? And I really want to encourage all of you to look at how deep can you look, how can you contribute, and like the chairman said, let's get this done. The Uhuru 3 and all of us don't need to be worrying about this anymore. We've already done so much. We can do this. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Anne. Yeah, I completely unite. And just so everyone knows, Anne is an amazing comrade. She has been organizing under the party's leadership for many years now in Seattle first, and then St. Petersburg, Florida, and now is out of Ecuador. So Anne's, an incredible comrade, always there to support the party. And in the first phase of the campaign, you may have been one of the people that participated in her yoga fundraisers. And that was one of the ways that Anne was raising money for the campaign. So that's my report. I want people to keep going in the comments and making your pledges, thinking about what you can do. If you need to assess your finances, talk to your partner, you can also go to handsoffuhuru.org/pledge. And that is where you can let us know that you would like to make a pledge as well. And if you did not hear us announce it, perhaps you're on YouTube or Facebook and I did not see it in the chat, but we also have Kristen who gave 25, Janet who gave 20, and Andrea who gave 50. Uhuru. Great. So we can do this, comrades. Together we will win. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, comrades Amanda and comrade Ann. And just to the just want to salute everybody who made a donation, who made a contribution. And I want to appreciate all the mental math that's going on to help us see how we can break this down in a way that is totally doable. I know we can do it. And even just want to salute us surpassing the halfway mark on today. And comrade Amanda, can you just remind us where we're at right now with our total raise, or in pledges and donations? Or you come back on, okay, there you are.
Yes, so far today alone, we've raised $3,230.
Hey, right on. Uhuru. Right on, comrades. All right, well, we are winning, and that is the truth. And I want to appreciate, I see another one in the chat. Sayero pledges $20. So yes, it's coming in, and we'll take a look on Facebook as well to make sure we don't miss anyone. Handsoffuhuru.org/pledge or handsoffuhuru.org/donate to make a donation on today. And I put this in the chat somewhere, but the San Diego Hands Off committee is going to also join that $100 before July, which I know we can do very easily. So I want to just say, count us in there as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Chair Jesse, who's going to share a little bit about one of our guest speakers, Josh Shirley. Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru Chair Mwezi, Uhuru Chairman, and everybody, and salute to everybody who donated and pledged to the 39,500. We're going to make this happen. Just want to express my full confidence in that. And I just wanted to appreciate Josh Shirley. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to stay on, but he was in touch, and we will be bringing him onto a future webinar. But we just wanted to salute Josh and also Veterans for Peace, of which he is the National Vice President. Veterans for Peace has been an incredibly important part of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback. They've had the Uhuru 3, including the chairman, speak at their events. The chairman actually spoke at their national convention. They've also worked with us here in St. Louis to build a tribute to Aaron Bushnell and the courageous stance that he took in solidarity with the Palestinian and all colonized peoples. And they were also there in full force in Tampa, Florida for the trial and the sentencing. So we really want to appreciate Veterans for Peace, and in particular appreciate Joshua Shirley, who has come to St. Louis. We've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times now. He lives in Fresno, California. He's an Army veteran and activist there in Fresno. And he's also on the board of directors for the Fresno Center for Nonviolence, and has been a very, very important friend and supporter of Hands Off Uhuru, and also joined the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So when we hear from Josh on the next webinar, he will be reporting to us about the recent delegation that Veterans for Peace took to Nicaragua, which is very significant for many reasons, and not the least of which is that the African People's Socialist Party has a long, profound history of unity with the Sandinistas, with the revolutionary struggle in Nicaragua, with the chairman actually having been there in 1981, right after the victory of the people against the US-backed Somoza regime. So we're looking forward to having Josh on to talk to us more about that. And he did let me know that there is another Veterans for Peace delegation coming up in late April to Vietnam in commemoration of the anniversary of the victory of the Vietnamese people against US imperialism. And he would be able to share with us about that as well. So we just want to thank Josh and Veterans for Peace, and we look forward to having them on the next webinar. Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade. Thank you, Chair Jesse. And I just want to appreciate and salute all of the forces that have come in, along the way. And we look forward to having Josh and then many others, who have been a part of this fight back. And we're going to move into our question and answer, and we can talk more about that. I just wanted to say, well, let me wait. I wanted to mention something about the National Lawyers Guild, another, great front that is also helping to, that also wants to be a part of this as well. So Chairwoman Penny, I'll turn it to you. I know we're going to go into our guided discussion, and I don't see too many questions. I just see a lot of comments that are here, but I do have one I can read from Audrey Bombs.
Okay, go ahead. And I see one from Don, and I think that's Don Hammonds, and I think that's all the time that
Okay.
we have.
That we might have, right.
This has been quite an event, very powerful.
Yes, and I just, well, and part of what I wanted to, say was that we have so many forces that are a part of this fight back. And so, we hope that each webinar we can continue to bring everybody on. And during the Zoom registration, some of you made comments and questions, and some of them we won't address on today, but we will address in the future. I did want to read one from Audrey Bomsey with the National Lawyers Guild. Spoke that they are initiating a campaign to get rid of the foreign terrorist designations, and made the call that perhaps we can combine our campaigns and our fight back. And we just want to say, I know Audrey's not on this call right here, but we definitely want to talk about this more, about how all of this can come under one. And I see you're nodding your head, Chair Jesse. I know you're working closely with these comrades as well. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that.
Well, yeah, I don't have much to say. I really appreciate Audrey Bomsey. She's been also a really great supporter of Hands Off and the National Lawyers Guild. And, I really look forward to meeting with them and discussing that, how this campaign can happen and the relationship that we can have to build this campaign. So I'm excited about doing that.
Uhuru. Thank you, Audrey, for your question. Thank you, Chair Jesse, who's working with the Legal Defense Support Committee of the Hands Off Uhuru Coalition. Okay, I see. Go ahead, Chairwoman Penny. I'll turn it to you for the other question here.
Well, okay, this is we'll have to be very brief because I know we're over time. But thank you to Don Hammonds. How does the seizing of state power through the initiative to overturn the law, which attempted to cripple the Uhuru movement, foreign agent registration law, strike a blow at the apparatus of the bourgeois law and incubate the establishment of true people's power? Chairman?
I think what it does is contribute to bringing masses of people into this discussion who have not been in the discussion. It's been the Democratic Party and the Republicans who've created the narrative around these elections. And we build a movement that bring people into this discussion through the electoral process that's dealing with all these critical questions. It gets debated, it gets struggled around. it's not something that's been squashed or buried by what the ruling class has determined to be important. When you do that, when you can mobilize masses of people, bring them into political life, that's almost the definition of what revolution is, bringing masses of people into political life. And so I think that's the critical question. That's the critical thing that we're doing. People have to remember what has happened in terms of pushing people out of political life, and now people are trapped with what appears to be no alternative to the Democratic Party. And that's why everybody's freaking out because of what Trump is doing, because lordy, 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 the only thing we've got is Kamala. Oh, that's not the deal at all. It doesn't have to be. And so that's why we want to take this and win this and win participation of the people in a real, fierce struggle using the electoral process that belongs to us. Black people fought and harder than anybody just for the right to vote. And I'm not just talking about voting for nothing. I'm saying that the ruling class never wanted us to vote. That's why they killed us, shot us, why they attacked us just recently. I mean, if you just look at the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the FBI attacked us for doing what? In part, for participation in elections in Florida. So we penetrating this, and we're bringing the masses with us. We're going to get the masses who have been locked into this situation without any agenda of our own. We're providing the agenda, the league, the organization, and the politic for doing that. And I just wanted to say, so I hope that addresses it to Comrade Don, but I also want to say that this question that's not on the agenda about lifting up Trotsky, and why would I lift up Trotsky? What I did was say that Trotsky was the one. He was a part of the Soviet government, because this is an issue of Trotsky and Stalin kind of contradiction. Stalin was a part of the Soviet government too. Trotsky was there. When Trotsky exposed, what was this deal they made subsequent to the Ottoman collapse? What is it called? Say it again?
The Sykes-Picot.
Sykes-Picot deal. He did it as a part of the same government that Stalin was a part of. So it ain't about holding up Trotsky. It's about saying this is what happened. And so you got an issue with Trotsky. That's your fault, but don't have an issue with him for exposing the Sykes-Picot deal that helped to define what this era is that we're having to deal with right now.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just thank you for that. Thank you very much, Uhuru.
Uhuru. And all right, comrades. Well, great discussion, and I want to appreciate everybody who contributed with questions and comments, and also who helped us to surpass our goal on today. And we are, inching closer towards our overall goal of raising the resources that we need for the appeal. I'm just very grateful to be back and to have us continue to wage this fight back. I also want to thank Comrade Soliana, who emceed our last two webinars and is just a phenomenal, upstanding comrade. And I just want to salute her. I know she's not on right now, but I just wanted to make sure I said that before we close on today. We are going to move into announcements. And I just wanted to also salute and thank all of our chat moderators, our Zoom techs, our people, those who are on the ground with AV, and everybody who's a part of this fight back. This can't happen without the people. And so in terms of the announcements, we are just want to remind everybody, you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/events for all of the events, and to keep up to date with the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back and all Uhuru Movement events. On next weekend, on the ground in St. Louis, but also with virtual participation, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations will be holding their 9th electoral campaign school, titled The Ballot and the Bullet. Not one day, not one dime, no compromise, no surrender. If you are interested in learning what it takes to run for a political office, or to, to put reparations and these anti-colonial, statements on the ballot, this is the kind of school for you. We encourage you to register. It is free, and you will get plenty of political education and just learn so much in these schools. You can do that by going to tinyurl.com/BIB9elect. Or you can go to the blackisbackcoalition.org website, and you can learn more information there and register. Uhuru. And this next slide just shows some of the great speakers, a partial list of speakers that you'll see. Comrade Sister Belinda Parker Brown, Comrade Jesse Todd, Cam Howard, Paul Pumphrey, Lisa Davis, Betty Davis, and Chairman Amalia Shatella, and many others. So sign up, comrades, to participate in the 9th Electoral School. And on Thursday, April 10th, recordings of the Burning Spear Media, 30 years of voices from the Uhuru movement. So on Thursday, April 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, the George A. Smathers Library at the University of Florida will be hosting an event to launch its new digital collection titled The Recordings of the Burning Spear Media, 30 Years of Voices from the Uhuru Movement. This is really exciting, comrades. This is decades of the party's archives who are now, which are now been made in a digital collection for everybody to listen and see and watch. So this event will also be live streamed, so we want you all to be there. You can get more information by going to theburningspear.com/events. That's the events calendar. And, make sure that you tune in for this really great launch of the party's historic archives. So on Saturday, May 24th, all throughout, the Uhuru movement, we will be celebrating the African Liberation Day, which is celebrating the founding of the African People's Socialist Party. So if you're on the ground in the southern region, if you're in St. Pete area, you want to get to the May 24th African Liberation Day celebration taking place in St. Petersburg, Florida, with keynote speaker, African People's Socialist Party regional representative Jainaba Lumumba. There will be live music, food, and drinks at the Uhuru House in St. Pete. For more information, you can call 727-914-3617. In the Western region, there will also be in San Diego. You can also get more information about the, saving the date for the African Liberation Day at the World Beat Center as well. More information can be found at alduhuru.org. And I also want to encourage everybody to get the Burning Spear. The April issue of the Burning Spear is here. You should have it in hand by now if you are a subscriber. If you're not, go ahead and subscribe to the Burning Spear. If you see us on the streets, they're only $1. You can become a distributor, and there are such amazing articles, and your stories can also be featured in the Spear as well. So get your Burning Spear today. You can do that by going to the burningspear.store or the burningspear.com/subscribe and get your gear. Wear your politics. We have new designs from Uhuru Planet, which is one of the 50 economic institutions of the Uhuru movement. And we encourage you to go to handsoffuhuru.org/shop or go to uhuruplanet.com to support all of our initiatives and our programs. And follow us, comrades, online on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok, and join the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. We encourage everybody to be a part of this fight back, build the anti-colonial free speech movement, and let's win. As we say, this time till it's won. It's not over, and we fight back until it's won, comrades. So Uhuru, and yes, Uhuru, we are winning. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, and Uhuru, comrades, freedom in our lifetime.
Vanguard up, comrades.
Vanguard up, relentless. Uhuru.